Marcus Chen had been working as a bodyguard for 3 years when everything changed. The job seemed simple enough. Protect Princess Zara of the Catherian Empire during her diplomatic visit to Earth. What nobody told him was that Catherian royalty attracted trouble like magnets attracted metal. The princess stood barely 5 feet tall, with pale blue skin that shimmered in sunlight, and eyes like liquid silver. Her people looked fragile, almost ethereal. But Marcus had learned not to judge alien species by their appearance. The Catherians controlled 12 star systems and commanded respect throughout the galaxy. "Mr. Chen," Princess Zara said, as they walked through the botanical gardens in Geneva. "You seem troubled today." Marcus kept his eyes scanning the crowd while they talked. "Just doing my job, Your Highness." The security briefing mentioned possible threats from the Viridian separatists. The princess sighed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "My people have many enemies. That is the price of power, I suppose." She was right. The Catherian Empire had expanded rapidly over the past century, bringing peace to many worlds but also creating resentment among those who valued independence over security. The Viridian coalition wanted their home systems back, and they weren't particular about how they got them. Marcus noticed the man in the gray jacket first. He moved wrong. Too purposeful. Too focused. His hand rested inside his jacket pocket, and his eyes never left the princess. Marcus stepped closer to Zara, his body forming a barrier between her and the potential threat. "Your Highness, we need to move. Now." Before she could respond, chaos erupted. The man in gray pulled out a weapon that looked like a twisted piece of metal, but hummed with deadly energy. He wasn't alone. 3 more figures emerged from different directions, all carrying similar devices. "Death to the royal parasite," one of them shouted in accented English. "Freedom for Viridia. Death to the royal. Death to the royal. Freedom for Viridia. Death to the royal. Tefted H. Freedom for Viridia." Marcus pushed Princess Zara behind a large oak tree and drew his service weapon. The alien energy weapons discharged with sounds like tearing fabric, and the air filled with the smell of ozone and burning leaves. "Stay down," Marcus told the princess. She nodded, her silver eyes wide with fear, but her composure intact. The first attacker aimed directly at their hiding spot. Marcus rolled out from behind the tree, drawing fire away from the princess. The energy bolt caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around and sending waves of agony through his body. Catherian weapons didn't just wound, they burned from the inside out. Despite the pain, Marcus returned fire. His bullets found their mark, dropping the first assassin. But the others had spread out, trying to flank their position. "You cannot protect her forever, human," another attacker called out. "She must pay for her people's crimes." Marcus gritted his teeth and moved again. A second energy bolt grazed his leg, leaving a burning line across his thigh. He ignored the pain and kept shooting, forcing the attackers to take cover behind scattered park benches and decorative sculptures. The third assassin managed to get behind them. Marcus turned just in time to see the weapon aimed at Princess Zara's head. Without thinking, he threw himself between the energy beam and the princess. The bolt hit him square in the chest, lifting him off his feet and slamming him into the ground. The pain was beyond description, like being struck by lightning and having acid poured into his veins at the same time. His vision blurred, and he could taste blood in his mouth, but he was still alive, still moving. Somehow, he managed to raise his weapon and put 2 bullets into the assassin who had shot him. The last attacker realized his mission had failed. Marcus could see him reaching for what looked like a grenade. If that went off near the princess, with strength he didn't know he possessed, Marcus dragged himself upright and charged. The assassin's energy weapon discharged again, catching Marcus in the ribs. But he didn't stop. He tackled the alien, both of them hitting the ground hard. They wrestled for the grenade. The Viridian was stronger than he looked, but Marcus had desperation on his side. The device's timer was already counting down. Marcus could see the alien numerals flickering in red. "Marcus!" Princess Zara screamed. He looked back at her, memorizing her terrified face, then made his choice. Marcus grabbed the grenade and the assassin together, rolling them both away from the princess's position. The explosion would kill them both, but it would spare her. The grenade went off. Marcus woke up 6 days later in a Catherian medical facility orbiting Earth. Every part of his body hurt, but he was alive. More surprisingly, so was Princess Zara. "You should have died," Dr. Vexus informed him in heavily accented English. The Catherian physician looked like a taller, more angular version of the princess, with the same silver eyes but darker blue skin. "The energy weapon damage alone should have been fatal to a human. The explosion should have vaporized you. How am I alive then? Human physiology is remarkable. Your species seems to possess an unusual resistance to trauma that would kill most other races. We've had to completely revise our medical understanding based on your case alone." Princess Zara appeared in the doorway, looking tired but unharmed. "Mr. Chen, I owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Just doing my job, Your Highness." She shook her head. "No. What you did went far beyond duty. You were willing to die for someone you had known for only 3 days. That kind of loyalty is rare in the galaxy." Marcus tried to sit up, wincing at the pain in his chest. "The assassins? Dead. All 4 of them. You killed 3 yourself before the explosion took the last one." The princess moved closer to his bed. "My father has offered you any reward you desire. Citizenship in the Empire, wealth beyond imagination. Your own planet to govern. Anything. I don't need a reward. I just need to know you're safe." The princess and the doctor exchanged a look that Marcus couldn't interpret. "There is something you should know," Princess Zara said carefully. "Word of what happened here has spread throughout the Empire. Stories of the human who took energy weapon hits that would kill most beings and kept fighting. The man who threw himself on a grenade to save an alien princess. So my aunt has heard these stories. Queen Morvana of the Catherian Empire. She rules over 200 billion souls across 12 star systems. And she has never been impressed by anyone or anything." The princess paused. "She wants to meet you." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with his injuries. He knew enough about galactic politics to understand what that meant. Queens didn't request meetings with bodyguards. They summoned them. What does she want? Nobody knows. The queen's thoughts are her own. But Marcus, Princess Zara's silver eyes, were filled with something that might have been fear. "When the Queen of the Catherian Empire requests your presence, you do not refuse." 2 weeks later, Marcus had recovered enough to travel. The princess accompanied him to the royal transport ship, a vessel the size of a city that gleamed like a jewel against the stars. "Will you be coming with me?" Marcus asked, as they stood in the docking bay. Princess Zara shook her head. "The Queen wishes to see you alone. But Marcus, remember, you have already proven your worth. Whatever she asks of you, you have the right to refuse. My father has granted you that protection." Marcus wasn't so sure about that. In his experience, when royalty wanted something, refusal wasn't really an option. The transport ship was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. The corridors curved in impossible directions, and the walls seemed to be made of some kind of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. Catherian crew members moved through the passages like dancers, their movements graceful and precise. His escort was a tall, imposing figure named Commander Thex. Unlike the princess, Thex looked like he could handle himself in a fight. His blue skin was darker, almost navy, and scarred in several places. His silver eyes held the flat, professional gaze of a veteran soldier. "The Queen is particular about protocol," Thex warned as they walked. "You will address her as Your Imperial Majesty. You will not speak unless spoken to. You will not look directly at her unless invited to do so. Understood. Do you? Human, what you did for Princess Zara was brave. But the Queen is not her niece. She has ruled for 3 centuries and conquered star systems with nothing but her will. Do not mistake her interest for friendship. The throne room was massive, with a ceiling that seemed to stretch into infinity. The walls were covered in what looked like living murals, images that moved and changed, telling the story of the Kytherian Empire's rise to power. At the far end of the room, on a throne carved from a single piece of black crystal, sat Queen Morvana. Marcus had expected her to look like an older version of Princess Zara. The Queen was beautiful in the way that a storm was beautiful, terrible and magnificent and dangerous. She was taller than any Kytherian he had met, with skin so pale it was almost white. Her silver eyes seemed to glow with their own light, and when she looked at him, Marcus felt like she was seeing straight through to his soul. "So," Queen Morvana said, her voice carrying easily across the vast room, "you are the human who impressed my niece." Marcus bowed as he had been instructed. "Your Imperial Majesty, look at me, Marcus Chen." He raised his head and met her gaze. The Queen studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. "Tell me," she said finally, "why did you risk your life for Zara?" "She was under my protection, Your Majesty." "That is not what I asked. I asked why you risked your life. Why you took energy weapon hits that should have killed you. Why you threw yourself on a grenade for someone you barely knew." Marcus considered his answer carefully. "Because it was the right thing to do." The Queen leaned forward slightly. "The right thing, according to whom?" "According to me, Your Majesty." For the first time since he had entered the throne room, Queen Morvana smiled. It wasn't a particularly comforting expression. Fascinating. "You acted not out of duty, not out of orders, not out of fear or hope of reward. You acted because your personal moral code demanded it." She stood up from her throne, and Marcus was startled to realize she was nearly 7 feet tall. "Do you know how rare that is in this galaxy, human?" "I couldn't say, Your Majesty. It is vanishingly rare. Most beings act out of self-interest, even when they pretend otherwise. They help others because they expect something in return, or because they fear punishment, or because their society demands it. But you nearly died for a stranger because you decided it was right." The Queen began to walk down from her throne, each step echoing in the vast chamber. "My empire spans 12 star systems, Marcus Chen. I command fleets that could shatter planets, and armies that could conquer galaxies. But do you know what I lack?" Marcus remained silent. "I lack someone I can trust absolutely. Someone whose loyalty is not bought with gold or enforced with fear. Someone who acts out of principle rather than profit." She stopped directly in front of him, close enough that he could see the ancient wisdom in her silver eyes. "I want you to serve as my personal guardian, Marcus Chen. Not because I need protection. I have armies for that. But because I need someone whose word means something. Someone who cannot be corrupted or turned against me." Marcus felt his mouth go dry. "Your Majesty, I'm honored. But you have concerns. Speak them. I don't know your customs, your politics, your people. I'm just a human from Earth. I don't belong in an imperial court." Queen Morvana's smile returned. "That is exactly why I want you. You don't belong to our politics or our schemes. You stand outside them, which makes you incorruptible. As for my customs," she gestured dismissively, "you will learn. Intelligence can be taught. Character cannot. What would you expect of me? The same thing you gave my niece. Your complete loyalty and protection. Nothing more, nothing less." The Queen's expression grew serious. "But understand this, Marcus Chen. If you accept this position, you will become part of the most dangerous game in the galaxy. The Empire has many enemies, and they will stop at nothing to destroy it. Your life will constantly be at risk." Marcus thought about Princess Zara's frightened face in the botanical garden. He thought about the energy weapon burns that still ached in the cold. He thought about the choice he had made to throw himself on that grenade. Will I be protecting innocent people? You will be protecting the stability of an empire that brings peace to 200 billion souls. Whether that makes them innocent is a question only you can answer. Marcus nodded slowly. It wasn't a perfect answer, but it was an honest one. I accept, Your Majesty. Marcus had been Queen Morvana's guardian for 6 months when he realized that the real danger didn't come from assassins or enemy fleets. It came from the people closest to the throne. The Catherian imperial court was a maze of shifting alliances and hidden agendas. Every smile concealed a knife. Every compliment carried poison. And every friend could become an enemy between breakfast and lunch. Marcus navigated it all with the same straightforward honesty that had impressed the Queen, which either earned him respect or marked him as a target, depending on who was doing the judging. You're making enemies, Guardian Chen, warned Lord Vexar during a formal dinner in the palace. The elderly Catherian courtier had skin so pale it was almost translucent, and his silver eyes held the cunning of someone who had survived 3 centuries of court politics. Marcus continued eating his meal without looking up. I'm not trying to make friends, Lord Vexar. I'm here to protect the Queen. That's exactly the problem. You act as if politics and protection are separate things. They aren't. Every decision the Queen makes creates ripples throughout the Empire. Every alliance she forms threatens someone else's power. And you, Vexar paused dramatically. You stand beside her, like a living symbol of her authority. Good, Lord Vexar laughed. But there was no humor in the sound. You don't understand. The more the Queen relies on you, the more dangerous you become to her enemies. And she has more enemies than you know. Marcus finally looked up from his plate. Are you threatening me, Lord Vexar? I'm trying to educate you. There are forces at work here that go beyond simple assassination attempts. The noble houses are growing restless. They see the Queen's favor toward you, a human, an outsider, as a sign that she's losing touch with her own people. Then maybe her people need to remember why she's been their queen for 3 centuries. Lord Vexar's expression grew cold. Careful, Guardian. Your loyalty to the Queen is admirable, but insulting the noble houses is a dangerous game. That night, Marcus stood guard outside the Queen's private chambers as she held a confidential meeting with her intelligence advisors. The palace corridors were quiet, lit only by the soft glow of bioluminescent crystals set into the walls. He had learned to find peace in these late-night vigils, when the constant political maneuvering finally stopped and he could focus on the simple task of keeping watch. His enhanced hearing, a side effect of the Catherian medical treatments that had saved his life, picked up raised voices from inside the chamber. Your Majesty, the situation in the Outer Rim is deteriorating, came the voice of Intelligence Director Kex. 3 more systems are showing signs of unrest. The noble houses are questioning your authority. Let them question, Queen Morvana replied, her voice carrying the steel that had conquered star systems. I did not build this empire by worrying about the opinions of pampered aristocrats. But Your Majesty, they have a point. Your reliance on the human guardian is being seen as peculiar. Some are saying it shows weakness. Marcus tensed. He knew he shouldn't be listening, but he couldn't help himself. Weakness? The Queen's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. They think it's weakness to surround myself with someone whose loyalty cannot be bought or sold. Someone who acts out of principle rather than greed. They think it's weakness to elevate an alien over your own people. Director Kex said carefully. Then they understand nothing about true strength. Marcus Chen has proven his worth in ways that none of them ever have. When the assassins came for Zara, did any of our noble houses throw themselves into harm's way? When I needed someone I could trust absolutely, did any of them step forward? There was a long pause before Director Kex answered. No, Your Majesty. But perception is often more important than reality in politics. Then perhaps it's time to change some perceptions. The meeting ended shortly after, and the intelligence advisors filed out of the chamber. Marcus nodded to each of them as they passed, noting the way their silver eyes avoided his gaze. Director Kex paused beside him. "Guardian Chen, walk with me." They made their way through the palace corridors in silence, until they reached a balcony overlooking the capital city. The lights of countless buildings stretched to the horizon, each one representing millions of Catherian citizens going about their lives under the protection of the Empire. "You heard the meeting," Director Kex said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes. Then you know the situation is more complicated than simple protection duty." Marcus leaned against the balcony railing. "Director, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I'd appreciate a direct answer. Are you planning to betray the Queen?" Director Kex was quiet for a long moment. "The Queen has ruled for 3 centuries. She's brought peace to 12 star systems and prosperity to billions of people. But she's not immortal, Guardian Chen. Someday, someone else will rule this empire. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you. The noble houses are powerful, and they have long memories. They remember when their ancestors ruled their home systems independently. They remember the wars of conquest, the forced integration, the loss of their traditional authority. They also remember the chaos and bloodshed that came before the empire brought peace. Do they? Most of them weren't alive then. To them, the empire is just another form of oppression, with the Queen as the ultimate oppressor." Director Kex turned to face Marcus directly. "You need to understand something. Your presence here isn't just about protecting the Queen's body. You've become a symbol of her policies. The human who earned her trust. The outsider who stands at the center of power. I never asked to be a symbol. Neither did she. But that's what leadership means. Every action has consequences that ripple outward. The Queen's decision to make you her guardian has sent a message throughout the empire. She values loyalty and competence over tradition and bloodline." Marcus considered this. "And that threatens the noble houses. It terrifies them. If a human can rise to such heights based on merit alone, what does that say about their inherited positions? If the Queen trusts an outsider more than her own people, what does that say about their relevance? Maybe it says they need to prove their worth instead of assuming it." Director Kex smiled grimly. "That's exactly the kind of thinking that's going to get you killed, Guardian Chen. Or worse, get the Queen killed." Before Marcus could respond, his communication device buzzed with an emergency signal. The Queen's voice came through, clearly. "Marcus, to my chambers immediately. We have a situation." Marcus found Queen Morvana standing before a holographic display showing a star map of the Empire. Several systems were blinking red, indicating some kind of crisis. "Your Majesty? 5 systems in the Outer Rim have declared independence in the past hour. They're calling themselves the Free Catherian Coalition, and they're demanding that I abdicate in favor of a council of noble houses." Marcus studied the display. The rebelling systems were all on the frontier, far from the central authority of the capital. How did they coordinate this? 5 systems don't just decide to rebel simultaneously, without planning. Exactly what I was thinking. Someone organized this. Someone with access to secure communications and the authority to convince planetary governors to commit treason. The Queen's silver eyes glowed with cold fury. "I have my suspicions about who. What are your orders? I want you to accompany me to the Grand Assembly tomorrow. The noble houses have called for an emergency session to discuss the crisis. It will be interesting to see who argues for negotiation with the rebels and who calls for swift military action. You think the traitors will reveal themselves? I'm counting on it. Traitors can rarely resist the urge to guide their victims toward disaster. They'll push for policies that benefit the rebellion while appearing to serve the Empire." Queen Morvana waved her hand, and the holographic display changed to show the layout of the Grand Assembly Hall. "But I need you to watch for something else." "What?" "Assassination attempts. If I'm right about who's behind this rebellion, they'll want to eliminate me before I can respond effectively. The Assembly would be the perfect place for it." Hundreds of noble houses gathered in one location. Plenty of confusion, multiple escape routes. Way, 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 Marcus studied the assembly hall layout, noting security positions and potential threats. I'll need to coordinate with Commander Thex on additional security measures. Already done. But Marcus. The Queen's voice grew serious. There's something else you need to know. If something happens to me tomorrow, if the assassination attempt succeeds, you need to get to Princess Zara immediately. Your Majesty? Zara is my heir. If I die, she becomes queen. But only if she lives long enough to claim the throne. The same people who want me dead will want her dead too. She'll need protection from someone she can trust, absolutely. Marcus felt a chill of premonition. You think tomorrow is a trap. I think tomorrow is a test. The question is whether we'll pass it or fail it. The Grand Assembly Hall was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Representatives from all the noble houses sat in concentric circles around a central speaking platform, their formal robes creating a sea of blue and silver that seemed to ripple with barely contained tension. The air hummed with whispered conversations and political maneuvering. Queen Morvana entered with full ceremony, her royal guard flanking her in perfect formation. Marcus walked directly behind her, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. The weight of every gaze in the hall seemed to press down on him like a physical force. Lord Chancellor Vex, the oldest and most respected of the noble houses, called the assembly to order. His voice carried clearly through the vast space as he outlined the crisis facing the Empire. 5 systems have declared rebellion. Millions of citizens are calling for independence. The very foundation of our empire is being challenged. He turned toward the Queen. Your Imperial Majesty, how do you propose to respond? Queen Morvana rose gracefully from her throne. With the same strength that built this empire, the rebels will be given one chance to reconsider their treasonous actions. If they refuse, they will be crushed. A murmur ran through the assembly. Lord Vexar, the same courtier who had warned Marcus about making enemies, stood to speak. Your Majesty, perhaps a more diplomatic approach would be wise. These systems have legitimate grievances. Perhaps we should address their concerns rather than respond with threats of violence. Their only legitimate grievance is that they exist under the protection of my rule. Rather than suffering in the chaos they would create for themselves, the Queen replied coldly. Lord Vexar, do you perhaps have insight into what motivated these systems to rebel so suddenly and so coordinatedly? Marcus watched Lord Vexar's face carefully. The elderly Catherian's expression remained perfectly neutral, but something flickered in his silver eyes. Just for a moment. I'm afraid I have no special knowledge of rebel motivations, Your Majesty. How unfortunate. One might think that someone with your extensive network of contacts and your centuries of political experience would have some idea how 5 systems managed to organize a simultaneous rebellion. The tension in the hall grew thicker. Other noble house representatives began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. Marcus's hand moved closer to his weapon as he sensed the mood turning dangerous. Then he saw it. A figure in the upper gallery, partially hidden by shadows, adjusting something that glinted like metal. Marcus's enhanced vision focused on the object. It was definitely a weapon, and it was aimed directly at the Queen. Without hesitation, Marcus launched himself forward, tackling Queen Morvana and driving her to the ground behind her throne, just as an energy bolt seared through the air where she had been standing. The blast hit the wall behind the throne with a sound like thunder, leaving a smoking crater in the ancient stone. Chaos erupted in the assembly hall. Noble house guards drew their weapons, not sure who to aim at. Representatives scattered for cover. Alarms began blaring throughout the palace. Marcus rolled to his feet, placing himself between the Queen and the upper gallery where the shot had originated. More energy bolts rained down from multiple positions. This wasn't a single assassin. It was a coordinated attack. Stay down, Marcus told the Queen, then activated his communicator. Commander Thex, we have multiple hostiles in the Grand Assembly. The Queen is alive, but under heavy fire. Thex's voice crackled back immediately. Palace security is responding. Royal guards are moving to secure the Queen, but Marcus could see that the royal guards were being overwhelmed. The attackers had positioned themselves perfectly, with overlapping fields of fire and multiple escape routes. This had been planned down to the smallest detail. He made a decision that went against every instinct of his training. Instead of staying with the Queen and waiting for backup, Marcus charged toward the attackers. The first assassin was reloading when Marcus reached the upper gallery. The human's speed and aggression caught the alien completely off guard. Marcus's fist connected with the assassin's jaw with a crack that echoed through the hall, dropping him instantly. An energy bolt from another position caught Marcus in the shoulder, the same shoulder that had been wounded protecting Princess Zara months earlier. The pain was excruciating, but he forced himself to keep moving. He could hear Queen Morvana shouting orders to her guards, coordinating a defense of the throne area. The second assassin had better reflexes than the first. As Marcus approached, the alien spun and fired at close range. Marcus barely managed to twist aside, feeling the heat of the energy bolt as it passed inches from his head. They grappled for control of the weapon. The assassin was stronger than he looked, but Marcus had desperation and experience on his side. He managed to wrench the weapon away and turn it on its former owner. By the time Commander Thex arrived with reinforcements, Marcus had neutralized 4 assassins, and the attack was over. He stood in the upper gallery, bleeding from 3 separate wounds, breathing heavily as the adrenaline began to fade. Guardian Chen, Queen Morvana's voice carried up from the main floor. Threat eliminated, Your Majesty. But we need to secure the area and search for additional hostiles. As the palace guards began their sweep, Marcus noticed something that made his blood run cold. In the confusion following the attack, several seats in the noble house section had been abandoned. Lord Vexor was nowhere to be seen. Queen Morvana appeared beside him, having climbed to the upper gallery despite her guards' protests. He's gone, she said quietly, following Marcus's gaze to the empty seats below. Lord Vexor, among others. They used the assassination attempt as cover for their escape. The Queen's expression was grim. This was never about killing me, Marcus. It was about creating chaos and giving the real conspirators time to disappear. Then they're still out there. Yes. And they've just shown their hand. The rebellion in the Outer Rim, the coordinated attack on the throne. This is bigger than I thought. Someone is trying to tear apart my empire from within. Marcus looked at the destruction in the assembly hall, then at the Queen's determined face. What do we do now? Lime. Queen Morvana's smile was sharp as a blade. Now we hunt them down and show them why I've ruled this empire for 3 centuries. But Marcus. She placed her hand on his uninjured shoulder. What you did today, charging the assassins instead of staying in a defensive position, it was tactically insane. Channer. Instand. Yes, Your Majesty. It was also exactly what I would have done. You're learning to think like a queen, Guardian Chen. Let's hope the galaxy is ready for 2 of us. As they made their way out of the ruined assembly hall, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that the real test was yet to come. The enemy had revealed their existence, but not their true strength, and somewhere in the darkness between the stars, Lord Vexor and his conspirators were planning their next move. The hunt was about to begin. Queen Morvana's smile became something warmer, more genuine. Then, welcome to the Catherian Imperial Court, Guardian Chen. May the stars preserve us all. The rebellion spread faster than wildfire through dry grass. Within 2 weeks of the attack on the Grand Assembly, 15 star systems had declared independence from the Catherian Empire. What had started as a political crisis was rapidly becoming a full-scale civil war. Marcus stood in the war room of the Imperial Palace, studying holographic displays that showed the latest intelligence reports. Red zones marked rebel-controlled systems, while yellow indicated worlds where loyalty remained uncertain. The blue zones, representing secure Imperial territory, We're shrinking by the day. The situation is worse than we initially assessed, reported Intelligence Director Kex, who had somehow managed to avoid being implicated in the conspiracy despite Marcus's growing suspicions. The rebels have significant military support. Someone has been supplying them with advanced weapons and strategic intelligence. Queen Morvana examined the tactical displays with the calm focus of a seasoned military commander. Show me the pattern of their attacks. The holographic map shifted, highlighting rebel movements across multiple star systems. Marcus immediately saw what the Queen had spotted. The attacks weren't random. Man, they were systematically targeting Imperial supply lines and communication networks. They're trying to isolate the core systems from the outer territories, Marcus observed. Cut off our ability to coordinate a response. Exactly. This isn't the work of desperate colonists seeking independence. This is a professional military campaign. The Queen's silver eyes glowed with cold analysis. Someone with detailed knowledge of our defensive strategies is guiding them. Director Kex shifted uncomfortably. Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider the possibility that some of our intelligence has been compromised. Consider it? Director, I'm certain of it. The question is how deep the betrayal goes. Before anyone could respond, Commander Thex burst into the war room without ceremony. The veteran soldier's face was grim with urgent news. Your Majesty, we've intercepted a communication from the rebel leadership. They're demanding a personal meeting with you. A meeting? How generous of them. What are their terms? They want to negotiate on a neutral world in the border systems. They claim they have information about the conspiracy that you need to hear. Queen Morvana laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. How convenient. I'm sure they do have information about the conspiracy. They're part of it. This is obviously a trap. Marcus studied the star chart showing the proposed meeting location. Your Majesty, what if it's not? What if there really are factions within the rebellion? Some who want independence and others who want something more? You think we should go? I think we should consider the possibility that not all our enemies are the same. The assassination attempt in the Grand Assembly was designed to create chaos, not necessarily to kill you. What if someone in the rebellion wants to make a deal? Director Kex looked alarmed. Guardian Chen, surely you're not suggesting the Queen expose herself to such obvious danger. I'm suggesting that sometimes the most dangerous path is also the only path to victory. Marcus turned to face the Queen directly. Your Majesty, you've ruled this empire for 3 centuries. You've survived assassination attempts, conquered star systems, and outlasted dozens of enemies. But you've never faced anything quite like this. What makes you think that? Because this time, the enemy knows you as well as you know them. They've studied your tactics, your preferences, your weaknesses. They're counting on you to respond predictably. Marcus gestured at the tactical displays. Every move they've made has been designed to force you into a conventional military response. What if we gave them something unexpected instead? Ren. Queen Morvana was quiet for a long moment, considering his words. You want to attend this meeting. I want to turn their trap into our opportunity. Explain. Marcus moved to the holographic display and began manipulating the star chart. The proposed meeting location is in the border systems, theoretically neutral territory, but look at the surrounding systems. 3 are controlled by the rebels. 2 remain loyal to the Empire. If this is a trap, they'll have positioned forces to cut off our escape route, which is why we shouldn't go. Which is why we should go, but not the way they expect. They're planning for you to arrive with a small diplomatic escort, easy to overwhelm or capture. Instead, we arrive with overwhelming force, but we don't use it unless they force our hand. Commander Thex frowned. Guardian, that sounds like a recipe for starting a shooting war. Commander, we're already in a shooting war. The question is whether we fight it on their terms or ours. Queen Morvana studied the tactical display with growing interest. Continue your thought. Marcus. The rebels think they know you. They expect the Iron Queen who conquered 12 star systems through superior firepower. Instead, we show them the diplomatic ruler, who built an empire through both strength and wisdom. We arrive with enough force to level their entire fleet, but we offer to negotiate instead of fight. That's either brilliant or insane, Director Kex muttered. In my experience, those are often the same thing, the Queen replied. Marcus, what makes you think any rebels will be interested in genuine negotiation? Because not all of them are traitors, Your Majesty. Some of them probably believe they're fighting for legitimate independence. If we can separate the true believers from the conspirators, we divide their forces and identify the real enemy. Queen Morvana's smile was sharp with approval. I like it. Commander Thex, prepare the Third Fleet for immediate deployment, maximum battle readiness, but with strict orders not to fire unless fired upon. Your Majesty, the risk, Director Kex began. The risk is acceptable. Director, you'll remain here to coordinate intelligence operations. If this goes badly, I'll need you to ensure the succession proceeds smoothly. Rector, the riskable. Rector, Marcus caught the meaningful look the Queen gave him when she mentioned the succession. Princess Zara would need protection if the worst happened. 3 days later, the Imperial Third Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the neutral system. 30 battleships and twice as many support vessels arranged themselves in perfect formation around the Queen's flagship. It was a display of power designed to make the rebels think twice about treachery. The rebel fleet was smaller but still formidable. 20 ships of various sizes and configurations, clearly cobbled together from different sources. Some were obviously stolen Imperial vessels, while others bore the markings of independent mercenary companies. Incoming communication from the rebel flagship, reported the communications officer. Put them through. The holographic display shimmered and resolved into the image of a familiar figure. Lord Vexar stood on what appeared to be the bridge of a military vessel, his pale blue skin and silver eyes unmistakable even across the vastness of space. Your Imperial Majesty, he said with a mocking bow. How generous of you to accept our invitation, Lord Vexar. I should have known. Though I admit I'm surprised to see you openly reveal your treachery. I had expected more subtlety from someone of your experience. Subtlety is a luxury for those who have time to spare. Recent events have forced a certain acceleration of our timeline. Queen Morvana leaned forward in her command chair. Our timeline? How fascinating. Please, enlighten me about this timeline of yours. The timeline for ending 3 centuries of autocratic rule and returning power to those who rightfully deserve it. The noble houses didn't lose their authority so that some alien bodyguard could stand at the right hand of the throne. Marcus felt the hostile attention of everyone on the bridge focus on him for a moment. He kept his expression neutral, but his hand moved closer to his weapon. Ah, so this is about Marcus, the Queen said with apparent amusement. How petty. I had credited you with loftier motivations, Lord Vexar. This is about the survival of Kytherian civilization. You've forgotten who you are, Morvana. You've forgotten that you rule by the consent of the noble houses, not by divine right. I rule by right of conquest and the continued prosperity of my subjects. The consent of pampered aristocrats has never been required. Lord Vexar's expression grew cold. Then perhaps it's time for a change of management. The communication cut off abruptly. Immediately, alarms began sounding throughout the Imperial flagship, as sensors detected weapon signatures from the rebel fleet. They're powering up weapons, reported the tactical officer. Multiple missile locks on our position. Marcus stepped closer to the Queen's command chair. Your Majesty, we should withdraw to a more defensible position. No. Open a general communication channel to all ships in the system. Channel open, Your Majesty. Queen Morvana's voice carried clearly across space to every vessel in both fleets. This is Queen Morvana of the Kytherian Empire. I came here in good faith to negotiate a peaceful resolution to this conflict. Instead, I find myself facing the weapons of traitors and rebels. But I will offer you one final opportunity to reconsider your actions. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. To those of you who genuinely believe you're fighting for independence and freedom, I understand your frustrations. The Empire is vast, and sometimes the needs of individual systems can seem overlooked. But destroying the stability that has brought peace to billions of people is not the answer. I am prepared to discuss genuine grievances and meaningful reforms. Another pause. To those of you who follow Lord Vexar and his fellow conspirators, you have been deceived. This rebellion was never about independence or reform. It was about a handful of bitter aristocrats who cannot accept that power must be earned rather than inherited. You are dying for their wounded pride. Nothing more. Marcus watched the tactical displays as the rebel fleet hesitated. Some ships began powering down their weapons, while others maintained their hostile posture. And to you, Lord Vexar, the Queen continued, her voice growing hard as steel, I offer you the same choice I gave the systems that first declared rebellion. Surrender now, and you will be tried according to imperial law. Continue this treachery, and you will be destroyed according to imperial justice. Lord Vexar's response came immediately. You always were too fond of speeches, Morvana. Let me give you a shorter one. Surrender your crown, or watch your empire burn. The first missile launched from the rebel flagship before he finished speaking. Evasive maneuvers, Commander Thex shouted. All ships, engage defensive protocols. The Imperial Third Fleet moved with practiced precision, point defense systems intercepting most of the incoming missiles, while the massive battleships maneuvered to avoid the rest. But the rebels had more surprises in store. Energy torpedo, port side. The tactical officer called out. Unknown configuration. Very high energy signature. The weapon struck the flagship's shields with tremendous force, sending shockwaves through the entire vessel. Marcus grabbed the Queen's chair to steady himself as the deck pitched violently. Shields down to 60%, reported the engineering officer. That weapon is more powerful than anything in our intelligence files. Where did they get it? The Queen demanded. Marcus studied the tactical readouts, his enhanced vision allowing him to process the data faster than most organics could manage. The energy signature was definitely not Kytherian, but it was familiar. Your Majesty, I think I know. The weapon signature matches Viridian Coalition technology. Specifically, the devices used in the assassination attempt against Princess Zara. The implications hit everyone on the bridge simultaneously. The Viridian Coalition had been supplying the rebels with advanced weapons. This wasn't just a civil war anymore. It was an invasion by proxy. Communications. Get me a secure channel to Imperial Intelligence. The Queen ordered. I need to speak with Director Kex immediately. While the communications officer worked to establish the connection, Marcus noticed something troubling on the tactical displays. Several rebel ships were breaking away from the main engagement and heading for the edge of the system. Your Majesty, we have ships trying to escape. If they reach hyperspace, they could bring back reinforcements. Then we stop them. All ships, weapons free. Target the fleeing vessels, but try to disable rather than destroy. I want prisoners to interrogate. The battle that followed was unlike anything Marcus had ever experienced. The Imperial Third Fleet was larger and better equipped, but the rebels fought with desperate cunning and superior knowledge of Imperial tactics. They knew exactly where to hit to cause maximum damage while minimizing their own casualties. Marcus found himself coordinating between the Queen's tactical decisions and the battlefield reports coming in from across the fleet. His human perspective on warfare, shaped by centuries of conflict on a single planet, provided insights that the Kytherian commanders had never considered. The rebels are using hit-and-run tactics, he observed, watching the tactical displays. They're not trying to win a direct engagement. They're trying to wear us down and create confusion. What do you recommend? Queen Morvana asked. Stop chasing them. Let them come to us. Commander Thex looked skeptical. Guardian, that goes against basic tactical doctrine. We have superior firepower. We should be pressing our advantage. Commander, look at the battle pattern. Every time we pursue a group of rebel ships, we leave gaps in our formation that other rebels exploit. They're using our aggression against us. The Queen studied the tactical situation for a moment, then nodded. All ships. Defensive formation around the flagship. Let the rebels make the next move. It was the right call. Deprived of the mobility advantage they had been exploiting, the rebel fleet was forced into a direct confrontation they couldn't win. Lord Vexor's flagship found itself surrounded by Imperial battleships, its shields failing under concentrated fire. This is your last chance to surrender. Queen Morvana broadcast to the rebel fleet. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Most of the surviving rebel ships complied immediately. But Lord Vexar's flagship and 3 escort vessels continued fighting, their weapons blazing defiance even as their shields collapsed. Stubborn to the end, Marcus muttered. No, the Queen said quietly. Desperate. He knows what happens to traitors under Imperial law. The final phase of the battle was brief and decisive. Lord Vexar's flagship, overwhelmed by superior firepower and abandoned by most of his fleet, finally succumbed to concentrated bombardment. The ancient aristocrat died as he had lived, refusing to admit defeat even when faced with inevitable consequences. In the aftermath of the battle, as the Imperial fleet secured the remaining rebel vessels and began processing prisoners, Marcus stood beside Queen Morvana on the observation deck of the flagship. The debris field that had once been Lord Vexar's ship drifted slowly past the viewports, a testament to the price of treachery. It's not over, the Queen said quietly. This was just one cell of the conspiracy. There will be others. Then we'll deal with them too. She turned to look at him, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight. We? Marcus, you've done far more than any guardian should be asked to do. You've proven your worth a dozen times over. If you wanted to return to Earth, to resume your old life, Marcus interrupted her with a shake of his head. Your Majesty, with respect, I don't have an old life anymore. What I have is a duty to protect you and the empire you've built. That duty doesn't end just because we've won one battle. Even knowing that there will always be another enemy, another conspiracy, another attempt on my life, Marcus smiled. Your Majesty, I'm human. My entire species evolved by facing impossible odds and finding ways to survive anyway. One thing we're particularly good at is being too stubborn to quit when the smart thing would be to run away. Queen Morvana laughed, a sound of genuine amusement rather than political calculation. Yes, I've noticed that about your species. Very well, Guardian Chen. It seems the Empire will continue to benefit from human stubbornness. There is one thing, though. What? When we get back to the capital, I'd like to visit Princess Zara. I want to make sure she's safe and prepared for whatever comes next. If something happens to you, she'll need someone she can trust absolutely. Yes, I understand. And Marcus, thank you. Not just for today, but for everything. You took every blow that was meant for my family, and you kept fighting when any reasonable person would have given up. That's not just loyalty. That's heroism. Marcus looked out at the stars, thinking about the long journey that had brought him from a simple bodyguard assignment to the center of galactic politics. Your Majesty, I think heroism is just stubbornness, with better publicity, perhaps. But it's exactly the kind of stubbornness this empire needs. As the Imperial Third Fleet began its journey back to the capital, Marcus reflected on the path that had led him here. He had started as a human, protecting an alien princess from assassins. Now he stood as guardian to the most powerful ruler in the galaxy, having helped preserve an empire that brought peace to hundreds of billions of souls. The rebels had been defeated, but the Queen was right. There would always be another enemy. The price of peace was eternal vigilance, and the price of leadership was the constant burden of making decisions that affected entire star systems. But Marcus had learned something important during his time in the Catherian Empire. Sometimes the most important battles weren't fought with weapons or fleets or political maneuvering. Sometimes they were fought by individuals who refused to give up, who kept getting back up, no matter how many times they were knocked down, who took every blow meant for those they protected. In a galaxy full of ancient civilizations and incomprehensible technologies, perhaps the most valuable thing humanity had to offer was the simple refusal to quit when things got difficult. It wasn't the most sophisticated strategy, but it had served his species well for millennia. As the stars wheeled past the viewports and the Imperial fleet headed home, Marcus Chen settled into his role as guardian to an empire. There would be more conspiracies, more battles, more enemies seeking to destroy the peace that Queen Morvana had built. But they would find that the human standing beside the throne had learned something important from his species' long history of survival. Sometimes the only way to win was to refuse to lose. And Marcus Chen had never learned how to quit.